Good afternoon, everybody. We're here today to present our findings on an evaluation on Emirates Airline. So the first step in our journey today is to take a look at the company's market position in the global environment. And after that, we'll do a little bit of analysis to see what new routes and expansions would be most profitable and helpful for the growth of the company. And then we'll talk a little bit about the challenges that a business might face when expanding into a new environment. And finally, we'll look at the financial models that underlie some of our recommendations. But before we get into that, we want to talk about the two questions we'd like to answer today. First, how should Emirates expand over the next 5 years? And second, what should Emirates do in order to best overcome the challenges of expansion? Now, our first step in evaluating the company's future growth is to take a look at the company overall so that we can understand its strengths and weaknesses. And so I'm going to give the floor to Ted to give you those details.
Thank you, Bianca. We applied a SWOT analysis to look at Emirates' strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Emirates had a diverse geographical presence. They have a strong connection with the Dubai government, and they are in the prime location to serve as the world's hub. However, Emirates has a 212% debt-to-equity ratio. That is double what the industry average is, which is 92%. And there has been dispute between Emirates and the Western countries about Emirates' unfair advantages. And these disputes can potentially harm Emirates' brand image. Emirates has a lot of opportunities through global growth and through strategical acquisition and partnerships. Some threats that Emirates face includes fluctuation in currency, competition, and aerial political risks. We used a funnel system to narrow down our searches. We started off with 6,000 major international airports. Then we picked the top 300 based on the population of the cities. We then eliminated 200 more based on the existing airport infrastructures. And then we picked the top 14 based on the cities that has the highest economic growth rates. And then we conclude with 4 using consumer-generated data. We developed a decision matrix to further evaluate the cities we picked. Our matrix evaluates our cities using 4 major categories: political, economical, intercultural, and infrastructural. And as you can see, Chongqing and Bali scored the highest, followed by Bogota and Mexico City. We decided to go with the top 3 cities from our matrix: Bogota, Chongqing, and Bali. Bogota is a brand new territory that we're expanding into, and we are proposing 4 flights per week using a Boeing 777. Chongqing is another brand new city that we're expanding into, and we're proposing a daily flight with the Boeing 777 as well. Emirates already has an existing route to Bali, and we're going to amp that up and add an additional route to Bali. But those 2 flights don't just end in Bali. Those flights will fly from Dubai to Bali, stop at Bali, and then fly to Australia, pick up passengers, fly back to Bali, and then back to Dubai. Now I will let Bianca talk more about the market demands in these selected cities.
Great. So I'd like to first talk about Bogota. So consumer wealth in Bogota is going to increase significantly over the next few years. And so this is going to drive demand towards the long-haul flights that Emirates can offer from Bogota to Dubai and other nearby tourist attractions. Currently, there are no major Middle Eastern-based airlines that are supporting a Bogota route. And so this is a perfect opportunity for Emirates to establish a competitive advantage as well as enter into a previously untapped market. Next, we believe that Chongqing, China, is the perfect place for Emirates to expand over the next few years. For instance, consumer wealth in this city is projected to be extremely high, which is going to drive outbound tourism. And incoming tourists are also more and more likely to choose China as a place for their tourism destination. Next, Chinese consumers are becoming more and more aware of Emirates Airline as a brand, which is going to make competitive effectiveness a lot more possible when we compare ourselves to local Chinese brands and already established airlines. And finally, the business opportunities and development are going to create a lot of possibilities for business travelers to fly in and out of the city. Finally, Bali is a place where we believe we should extend our current route because of three factors. First, tourism from Australia is extremely high and is only going to continue to grow. Second, Indonesia's political climate is more stable than ever, which is going to attract a lot of foreign investment. And third, Emirates Airline already has an established presence and cultural expertise in both of the areas. And now, Tomoki is going to talk a little bit about the risks associated with expansion.
Thank you, Bianca. So here are some of the overall challenges that Emirates will face that Ted talked about in his SWOT analysis. So let us now take a closer look into the challenges that are specific to the cities that we recommend. So first city is Bogota. So far, Emirates has been mainly doing business in Asia, Europe, and Africa. So that means Emirates doesn't have as much experience doing business in South America. So this will require Emirates to do an extensive research into the regulations and the market needs. Similarly, Emirates will have to develop a brand recognition by strategies such as sponsoring into sports teams like they did in Europe. And the second city of our recommendation is Chongqing. Right now, Chongqing's market is dominated by Chinese airlines. So the competition is going to be a challenge. In order to more effectively compete, Emirates will have to take on additional infrastructural investment internally in order to compete more effectively. And they also need to take an advantage of tax incentives provided by the Chinese government. And the last recommendation city we have is Bali. Although Indonesia is known to be a major tourist attraction, its aviation industry is known to be very unsafe. This will require Emirates to work very closely with Indonesian government to promote safety in aviation industry. And also there are some other regulations that are going to affect Emirates business in Indonesia. Andrew's going to talk about the financials next.
Thank you, Tomoki. Now here's our 5-year outlook for each of the 3 cities we're proposing expansions into. So as you can see here, the Chongqing market, that's going to be a lot higher than the rest of them for profits of the first 5 years at over 57 million, followed by over 18 million for each Bali and Bogota expansions. This is taking into account the initial investment required for a single 777 aircraft that is required to meet the needs for these new routes that we are expanding into in these 3 cities. So why is Chongqing so much more profitable than the rest? Part of that is due to the 8% per year growth rate that the industry is going to see in China over the next 5 years, which is very high. And partly because the route from Chongqing to Dubai is very underutilized, especially for premium airlines like Emirates. And as for our break-even analysis, after just 3 years and 9 months, the Chongqing expansion is going to overcome its initial cost, followed closely behind by Bali and Bogota at just 4 years and 8 months. So these expansions are going to be very profitable and are going to turn over in overcoming their initial costs in a very short period of time. Now here's Bianca to close us out.
Great, thanks. So these recommendations are about more than just Emirates development for the next 5 or even 10 years. By using the strategies that we've outlined in our presentation today, Emirates is going to be able to build their brand across the world to ensure innovation for years to come. And most importantly of all, Emirates is going to be able to continue to aim high and fly higher. Thank you, and we'll open the time up for questions now.
So you looked at the payback periods and the investments required. What were your assumptions in terms of the aircraft loading as you were ramping up to these new cities?
Can you repeat that, please? The aircraft?
The aircraft loading, the percentage full.
I don't believe we took that into account when we did our projections.
I have a question on your Bali expansion. You know, Bali really has been a heavy tourist attraction, tourist destination, especially for Australians. I really like the idea of using it as a place that you could get to from Dubai, Bali, Australia, as a route. But if you're going to be making Bali as a kind of a regional hub for that route, is Bali equipped to do that? Are the airports sophisticated or large enough to handle the flights that you're planning on bringing there, the planes, the gates, all of that kind of infrastructure?
So our plan is to add an additional plane, one more plane, but it's identical to the one that we are using right now. So they can handle the going in and out, because the runway in Bali can handle those planes that we are going to add. But what is happening here is that we are sending the plane that's coming from Dubai to Sydney, which we already have a base there. We have been flying to Sydney for a long time. So that's why we can just add one more, and then so by rotating everything, it actually takes 38 hours for one cycle to happen. So it's going to it's not going to change the frequency of the flight to Dubai. Does that answer the question?
I think it's very interesting, your Bogota location. What are the risks? I have two questions really. What are the risks associated with Bogota? Because I have experience with doing business there, and it has changed significantly in the last few years, but there's still high risk, I think. And two, and what's going to mitigate that? What do you see for the future? And then two, who's the competition in Bogota? What does that look like?
So the risk really is their economy isn't doing super well right now in terms of growth, and basically their infrastructure isn't very good for the airports quite yet. But to mitigate that, basically the government in Colombia has made an initiative in the next 5 years to really ramp up their airports in terms of infrastructure. So we think that will work well into our plan. And actually, if you want to go to the timeline, we are planning on introducing aircraft into flights into Colombia at the end of 2020 when those infrastructure developments have been completed, so that we take that into account when we decide on that country.
And then what are the risks for Colombia? For instance, Colombia has not always been considered a very safe place to travel for some groups. That's changed of late. What are the risks? What are the other risks that you see about launching in Colombia?
Just that we don't really have much of a presence there, I think. We basically have direct flights to Sao Paulo and Buenos Aires in Argentina, but those are really far away basically from Colombia. So I guess it's a risk and opportunity at the same time that we really don't have much of a presence there, so it might be hard to break in, but we feel like just because it's geographic location, might be able to pick up around the Latin Americas and stuff, get passengers from there, that we can overcome that with a lot of revenue in that area.
Did you consider partnering with a Colombian airline, for example? I don't see Bogota necessarily as a destination or as a sufficient destination for enough people to go to all year long to make that a viable route for you, unless that's the jumping off point for elsewhere. Is there an airline you considered partnering with that's Colombian?
Yeah, we did not really use that as a co-sharing partner that we considered.
So who do you see as your primary competition in each of those cities that you're looking into? In Bogota and in Bali and Chongqing.
Yeah, so basically for Bogota, there's a lot of Middle Eastern airlines that actually already go there, either direct or indirect, and that's Turkish Airlines, Qatar Airlines, and then Interjet, I guess, is more of a American and other surrounding areas. But basically, those are their competitors there. For Chongqing, Air China is our main one, and they're the one that goes directly from Dubai to Chongqing. But we think that with how good our customer service and all that is, that we can charge a higher rate and get to that more high wages customers instead of Air China. And then for Bali, Virgin Australia offers a route from Sydney to Bali. Then that's basically our main competitor, so we'll have to kind of make sure that we're also getting more premium offering than that airline does.
So it looked like you had a very regimented and data-driven approach to whittling down from 6,000 airports to really 3 recommendations. I'd be interested in seeing the list of the 14 cities before you make the final cut to the 3. Do you have that available?
We don't have that available as of yet, but we can certainly make the database that we use of 6,000 cities as well as our breakdown available to you at another time.
12 cities that
Oh, the 12
we consider.
cities.
We actually do go to. So these are the top cities that we chose, the 14 cities. And what we did is that because we eliminated European airports because Emirates has lots of competition, and there are so many competitors in Europe that we just decided to try out the newer location.
In terms of, you did your break-even analysis, did you say that was based upon a single 777 for each city?
Yes.
Am I interpreting that correct? In terms of recovering those costs, did you just assume the plane would always be full? And that there would be, since Emirates is a brand that's driven largely by luxury and its service, is that primarily first-class passengers, and are there sufficient first-class passengers in these cities to fill that plane?
Yes, so we found out that as of 2016, Emirates has an average of 76.5% capacity on each of their flights. So we used that in the financial analysis. And then we found out that about an average, about 10% of the flight is business class, first class. So we used that to figure out the total revenue.
So what do you expect the capital expenditures to run in order to fund this growth, in terms of number of airplanes, infrastructure spending in each of those 3 markets? Do you find that to be a major capital expenditure for us?
Yeah, due to time constraints, we really only took the initial 777 aircraft into our capital expenditures. So that's what we used basically for our initial investment cost.
And in terms of your payback period, that was counted from the time you began the route?
Yes.
So if, for example, Bogota in 2020, the payback being 4.8 or so, it would be close to 20.5.
Yep.
So I also have a question in terms of your marketing strategy in each of those 3 markets. Are you focusing on business markets in those, especially in Bogota? I just wonder whether there's enough of a business market to justify the premium pricing that we would be charging there.
Yes, basically, we really took the soccer, the football marketing as generally what we would plan on doing with a lot of this. This is based on our list of, there are a lot of different sports. Soccer is a very big one with all the big teams and big tournaments that we did. So basically our plan was to basically introduce that even more into like Bogota, like Colombia. We don't have like too much there other than like Real Madrid has a really big Colombian soccer player that wears their jersey. But other than that, there's not too much brand awareness, I guess. So we were planning on introducing more like Colombian soccer teams or maybe a Colombian tournament to sponsor.
And for Bali, there are lots of traffic of tourists from Europe to Bali, and Dubai is right in the middle of Europe and Dubai, so that is a great way. So that's where we see the market.
What are the regulatory risks in China in your deployment there?
So China has very high tax rate compared to other countries. So that's the most significant risk that we found in terms of regulations. And of course, other competitors, our competitors are mainly Chinese airlines. So it is going to be really, airlines in China, they know more about the regulation. They know better about the regulations. So we'll have to make a significant investment to be familiar with the regulations.
Something we also consider is that there is a lot of restricted airspace in China specifically. But especially in Chongqing Airport, they're investing a lot of money to expand the capacity of the airport, and that's the government funding it. And so we take that as a sign that in the future there may be loosened requirements. And since we have an existing presence in China, we do have some sort of relationship with the government and some knowledge of the existing regulations.
How's the airspace safety of these 3 airports compared to Dubai, which is, well, how does it compare?
I'll stop you there this time.